Thursday, August 23rd. So I wanted to bring some of the people that have influenced my career. So what I did was I went back into my archives, and I've never done anything like this. I'm not typically a nostalgic type of person. I don't, unless I tell a story and it's brief, and if it's comical, then I'll typically share something. But to go back and revisit some of the people that have been important to me in my career, not something I've ever done. And in my life, by the way. So people that have been important to my life and important to my career, I printed out 6 photos, right? Of people that have been influential, very influential, each person, to my career and my life. A couple of these guys are dead and most of them are alive. But I wanted to share one of these guys today and tell you a quick story about him. So these guys here haven't been with me. Both of these guys are dead. And gosh, when I first got into the real estate business, I found these 2 guys. So the first guy is Jerry Green, okay? Now if you see that, I'm gonna link Jerry Green's book at the bottom. Jerry Green wrote a book about his life. He's a Kansas City guy all of his life. Very interesting person, okay? I was 23 years old. When I was 23 years old, I worked at my dad's restaurant as a manager, but also as a bartender. And on Wednesday nights, I was the bartender. And on Wednesday nights, Jerry Green and Betsy Green would come in for dinner. Most Wednesday nights. And Jerry Green would drink a couple of big vodkas, and I had no idea who the guy was. Now, if anybody knows Jerry Green or knew him when he was alive, you would know that Jerry Green did not, especially in his 70s, which is when I got to know him, did not dress the part. So he might drive to lunch in a Lamborghini, but he was wearing shorts and like a sweatshirt with yesterday's lunch on it. And I don't mean that, in a disparaging kind of way. It was a very, interesting part of his personality. He just didn't care when it came to that kind of stuff. Just didn't. So he would come in Wednesday nights. I had no idea who he was, meaning I didn't know he made any money. I really assumed that he had no money. He had enough money for the bill, and he left a nice tip, and he liked me, but I didn't think that he had ownership in any companies, let's put it that way. So I left the restaurant when I was about 23 to pursue real estate full time. That was 15 years ago. That was August of 2003. All right, I was 22 actually at the time. I went to go pursue real estate full time. I had been doing it part time for a little while I was at the restaurant 15 years ago. Well, Jerry Green walked in on Wednesday night. I wasn't there because I wasn't working there anymore. So he asked my dad, where did the young man go that worked behind the bar? And he said, are you talking about my son? And Jerry said, well, I guess. I don't know. He's the bartender on Wednesdays. I like him. I like the way he pours my drink. And what's he doing? Where's he at? My dad said, well, that's my son, and he decided to sell real estate. And so apparently Jerry told my dad at the time, well, give him my phone number because I want to talk to him about something. Well, I get this guy's number at the time, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm in real estate now. I guess I got to talk to people. I guess maybe I don't know, try to sell the guy a house, trying to, work my way through the deal. But I figured this is what I'm supposed to do. So I called Jerry Green up, and he said, I want to have lunch. I said, okay, we'll have lunch. So we go to Hereford House at Town Center, which is where he liked to lunch, okay? And we sat down at that lunch, and he said, what do you want to do? And I'm 23 years old at that time, been selling real estate for about 6 months, probably sold 3 houses. What do you want to do? I don't know. What do I want to do? I want to sell houses, I guess. Inside of that lunch, I said, I just want to sell houses. And he said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you $1 million. I don't know this man. I'm his bartender. I've been selling houses for 10 minutes. He says he's going to give me $1 million. So he was serious. He said, I'm going to give you $1 million. I want you to open a business. You decide what it's going to be, and I'm going to back you. And come to find out, I asked him some more questions, and he owned, of course, he used to own Jerry Green Chevrolet. Then he started a company called Union Bank, where he made lots of money at Union Bank. And then he owned Union Broadcasting, which was 1510, 810 Sports Radio. And he owned numerous companies and lots of stocks, and had probably near $50 million was his net worth at that time. I don't think I knew anybody who was worth $5 million that I knew of. But now I had a guy worth $50 million who pursued me and was going to give me $1 million. So I was kind of surprised by that, of course, and excited at 23 that, great, I got $1 million. That's all my dreams come true, right? But I knew that I didn't know exactly what I was going to do yet. And I knew that I didn't know everything I needed to know in order to invest his money wisely. And I wasn't sure even really what that meant. So I said, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go back, put some ideas together. And a couple weeks from now, we'll have lunch and I'll present it. That's, in my memory now, that's kind of how it went. But it could have been 2 weeks, could have been 30 days. So fast forward, we come back 30 days later, and what I told Jerry Green was this. I said, Jerry, I'm 23 years old. I haven't sold very many houses. I think I'm going to be good at it, but I'm not very good at it yet. And while I appreciate your offer to give me $1 million, I have no idea what to do with $1 million. So I can't take $1 million. But what I'll do is I'll take 100,000, because that's a number I can comprehend, and we'll start investing in some real estate deals if they make sense, right? So he agreed at the lunch to give me $100,000. We got in his car, we drove to Commerce Bank, where it's the only place I knew to go, because that's where I opened my checking account when I was 15 years old. I wasn't familiar with any other bank. He owned a bank. We didn't go to that bank. We went to Commerce because that's where I had an account. We walked in. He wrote a check for $100,000 and put it in the account. And he said, let me know how we do. I have no clue in hindsight what he saw or why he wanted to give me this money, but he did. So with the money, I pursued some investment deals. And in 2005, prices were pretty high and it was difficult to find deals, but I found some deals. And we did a commercial deal where we bought a building and fixed it up and sold it. And we did 4 or 5 residential deals, 1 townhouse, 3 houses. What happened with that is the company, at the end of the company, which was probably 5 years later, towards 2007, when the market started to really go down, we had made quite a bit of money on some of the deals, and we lost some money on some deals. And I was learning a lot about how much you could rely on that type of business, and then how much you could not rely upon it. And so ultimately what happened was Jerry wanted to come back and revisit the $1 million. Even though we didn't knock the cover off the ball and turn 100,000 into 300,000, I think we turned 100,000 into 140,000, maybe 145,000. That's a pretty good return. And he was not interested in the 100,000 necessarily. He was interested in making some mistakes and learning. So a couple things that I learned from Jerry, and then I'll tell you the end of the story. One of the things I learned from Jerry at lunch is I said, Jerry, I haven't been doing this that long. I know how to run a restaurant. I know how to tend bar. I know how to pour drink. I don't know how to do this. And I will never forget, because I needed to hear this at 23 years old, and it was a really important thing for me, was he said, and this is a guy who had made $50 million, or had amassed $50 million, which means he probably made $500 million in his life. And he said to me, if you can do one thing successfully, you can do anything. That was so empowering to me at 23 years old. I'd never been told anything like that before. As a kid, I had no idea that you could do something for a living unless that's what your dad did. My dad was in restaurants, so I thought I had to be in restaurants. And I never knew that. So when Jerry Green told me that if you're good at one thing, you can be good at another thing, and business is the same, the principles are the same. If you can do this, you can do that. I will never forget that he told me that. I will never forget that that changed the direction of my mindset. And I always remembered what he said. And I always thought, don't second guess yourself, because if you can be good at that, you can be good at this. I'll never forget that Jerry told me that. So at the end of the deal, Jerry wanted to give me the $1 million, and I had some ideas about what I was going to do with it at that time. Now I don't think they were great ideas. But Jerry got sick, and he became basically incapacitated. I got to see him a couple times on his deathbed, basically, and he died before he could ever assign me $1 million. And it was the best thing that ever happened, really, that I did not take the money initially, and it's also the best thing that ever happened that he never got a chance to really give it to me, because earning the money was far more important, and it is far more worth far more than somebody giving you that. Now, I'll never forget that he was willing to, and I'm very thankful that I said no. And I think ultimately it probably was a really important thing for his and I's relationship that I did say no. And I think that's probably why he was willing to give it to me, was because I was the type of person that would say no to that. So after he died, the company had, after he took a small dividend, I think maybe I had made $10,000 doing the deals that we did, and maybe he took $10,000. And the company may have had $120,000 roughly left from the $100,000 that he initially put in. So it wasn't a huge profit. And I was contacted by his attorneys, and they were coming after the money. And we had no agreement. We had no documents. We had nothing signed that said anything about the money. All we had was a bank account that had his name on it and my name on it. Well, at the time, you know, he had high-powered attorneys. I was 25 or 26 years old. I had no idea how to handle any of those things. And they called me and they said, we want to see the agreement, and we want to see how much of this money is the estate's and how much is yours. And I said, well, you guys didn't know Jerry Green, because there is no agreement. We have nothing signed. We have a bank account, and we had an agreement that it was 50-50. That was the deal. I was going to do all the work. He was going to put up the money, and our deal was 50-50. And they said, well, we don't have anything that says that. So my response at that time was this. And this is exactly a true story, exactly what I told the attorney at Sunshine Law in Kansas City. I said, I'm going to give you guys two options. The two options are, number one, you can honor the deal that Jerry made with me, and we can split the money 50-50, $60,000, $60,000, and I'll cut a check for that. Or, if you guys don't like that, I'll cut you a check for all of it, because I learned everything that I needed to learn from him. And if you need the money for the estate, I'll give it all back. Now, you've dealt with attorneys, right? You've seen, can you imagine an estate that this is the response they got from one of the business owners was, you could either have half or you could have it all? They called me back within 1 hour, and they said, we've discussed it with Betsy, who I'm thankful to, and Betsy said, give him half. And that's what they did. So I cut a check for exactly half of the bank account, and at 25 years old, I had like $60,000, which to me at that time was a lot of money. It still is a lot of money, but at that time, I you know, it was so much money, I had no idea that I could make that much money, if that makes sense. So since then, you know, that's been years ago, and that's gotten folded into other things. But the point was that what I remember about Jerry, you know, one of the people that's on, there's one of the people that's been an influence on me, but an incredible influence on me that I'll never forget, is Jerry encouraged me and said, if you can do this, you can do that. And to that and for that, I will always be grateful for Jerry. So if you need that message, here it is. If you need to hear that, then understand that business and the fundamentals of business, I believe, are all the same. You take care of people, you do the right things, you show up every day, you do the job to the best of your ability, tell people the truth, get up and try harder the next day. It's very simple. It's very simple. If you can do that in your job currently, you can do that here, you can do that at a bank, you can do it at a car lot, you can do it anywhere in the world. And thank Jerry Green for that message, because he gave it to me and now I'm giving it to you. So I'm going to tell you about some more of these guys if you're interested, and some of the lessons that I've learned from each of them that I apply every day here. Hope you guys are having a good day. See ya.